Read the title of that video. Read the title. Yeah. That says exactly, you just read that right. You just read that right. The title of the video says, racist, bigoted, crooked, xenophobic criminal attacks other racist, xenophobic, crooked criminal. Yeah. You just read that right. That's, yeah. Two racists going after, two racists, two criminals, two crooks. I'm going to show you, I'm going to let you listen to this. This is almost 60 seconds. Here's what Dick Cheney said.
In our nation's 246-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. He tried to steal the last election using lies and violence to keep himself in power after the voters had rejected him. He is a coward. A real man wouldn't lie to his supporters. He lost his election, and he lost big. I know it, he knows it, and deep down, I think most Republicans know it. Lynn and I are so proud of Liz for standing up for the truth, doing what's right, honoring her oath to the Constitution, when so many in our party are too scared to do so. Liz is fearless. She never backs down from a fight. There is nothing more important she will ever do than lead the effort to make sure Donald Trump is never again near the Oval Office. And she will succeed. I am Dick Cheney. I proudly voted for my daughter. I hope you will too.
Okay. Lord. So let me start off by saying this. I completely despise both Dick Cheney and Donald Trump. And in case I wasn't clear enough, I said this at the beginning of the video, and I'm going to reiterate. They are both racist. They are both misogynistic. They are both warmongers, war criminals. It's arguable that one might be a bigger war criminal than the other, but I don't have the time to dissect that right now. They are both bigoted. They are both xenophobic. They are both arrogant. They are both narcissistic. They are both egotistical. They are both power hungry. They both don't give a crap about anybody but themselves. You can kind of say Cheney kind of cares about his family a little bit. With Trump, that's questionable. I don't know. But there's too many negative adjectives that I can use to describe both people. The only significant difference is that one of them just appears to be a little bit smarter than the other. And one thing that's ticking me off right now is that I'm seeing too many Democrats and liberals that are giving too much credit to Dick Cheney just because he says Donald Trump is bad. Let me ask you this. Trump also said that Bush, McCain, and Romney were all bad. Does that mean that we give credit to Trump just for saying that? No, of course not. Because he's just as bad as them, and many could argue that he's worse than them. Let's go back to a few points here. Let's do this.
In our nation's 246-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump.
Okay, so he just said that there's nobody that's been a greater threat. Well, Dick, that's arguable. That's debatable. When your administration was in charge, you guys were pretty much the greatest threat that we've had. I mean, your administration lied us into at least 7 different countries. Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Syria, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Yemen. Just to name a few. There might have been more that I don't know about, but let's start off with those 7. So, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this part, but I'm going to say it anyway. Let's see how long this will last. 9/11 happened under your watch, Dick Cheney. 9/11 happened under your watch. There were documents about, what happened to the money that was missing from the Twin Towers. All of a sudden, those documents were nowhere to be found after that. Nowhere to be found. Rumsfeld had no answer to it. Ashcroft didn't have no answer to it. Neither did Karl Rove. Of course, George Bush has no answer to anything because he's not bright either. Really not that much more bright than Trump is. I want everybody to be clear here. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I completely despise both Dick Cheney and Donald Trump. They both are huge threats to America. Both of their asses should be in prison. Just throwing that out there right now. I'm just throwing that out there right now. We've had many threats in the past. I mean, we had Henry Kissinger, we had Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, John Bolton, who's probably one of the worst of all. I mean, this guy wanted to full out go to war with North Korea. He got mad at the Trump administration and even sometimes the Bush administration for not being right wing enough, not being warmongering enough. He wanted them to actually go to war with Iran. I think at one point he even hinted Russia. He wanted us to go to war with, like I said, North Korea. Just to name a few. He was gonna. There's been so many threats to this country. Let's hear.
He tried to steal the last election using law.
Okay, well, Dick Cheney, I believe that most of us still believe that you and your team stole the 2000 election. And yes, we think that in a way 2016 was kind of stolen. And I think 2020 was fair. But you guys lost both popular votes. In 2000, when you ran against Al Gore, and in 2004, when you ran against John Kerry. They lost both popular votes, and they narrowly got in because of the Electoral College. If you ask me, I think Cheney, Bush, Rumsfeld, I think they were behind that. Jeb Bush, George Bush's brother, was the governor of Florida at the time, and that's where they were doing the, some stuff was happening down there with the Electoral College and some of the votes, and it went to the Supreme Court. A number of people were mad at Al Gore because he didn't fight hard enough for it, or that's how they felt. We believe some shady stuff was going on down there. So, Dick, I think that you are guilty of stealing at least an election yourself.
Lies and violence to keep himself in power after the vote.
Lies and violence. Well, trust me, there's a lot of things that Trump says and does that leads to lies and violence. But I'll tell you this, Dick, almost everything that your administration said was a lie. And there was a lot of violence because of you guys. Maybe not as much internationally, or I'm sorry, not as much internally, but more so externally. You may not have been a domestic, like, here's the thing. Let's start off with two countries. As I said earlier, Dick, you lied us into Afghanistan and Iraq. At minimum, 200,000 of our soldiers were killed in Iraq. At minimum, 200,000 were killed in Afghanistan, and then you had an additional 200,000 to 300,000 that were killed in Iraq as a result of your lies about weapons of mass destruction that nobody seemed to have found. And let's not, the countless lives that we lost in Syria, the countless lives that we lost in Saudi Arabia, Yemen, the genocide the Bush administration were the ones who got America in the U.S.-Saudi weapons deal, where we helped commit genocide in Yemen, where we are killing and bombing innocent women, children, people of color. If you ask me, I think that's violent. Maybe it's not. If it's not violent, please show me. I think it's violent.
Voters had rejected him. He is a coward. A real man wouldn't lie to his supporters.
Okay, Dick. As I said just a few minutes ago, everything that you said was a lie from 2000 to 2008. And even the stuff that you were saying and doing before then, you were a congressman in the 70s, 80s. You were Gerald Ford's chief of staff. You were George Bush Sr.'s Secretary of Defense. You were lying for them too. You helped propagate the lie you were helped bringing about the war on drugs. And when things like, certain drugs were going to like inner cities, whatever, and then you said, oh, well, the Clintons were responsible for this. You were part of propagating that lie. Just like Senior was, just like John Bolton was, just like Giuliani, all these Republicans.
He lost his election, and he lost big. I know it, he knows it, and deep down, I think most Republicans know it. Lynn and I are so proud of Liz for standing up for the truth, doing what's right, honoring her oath to the Constitution, when so many in our party are too scared to do so. Liz is fearless. She never backs down from a fight. There is nothing more important she will ever do than lead the effort to make sure Donald Trump is never again near the Oval Office. And she will succeed. I am Dick Cheney. I proudly voted for my daughter. I hope you will too.
Well, you know what, Dick? We were also trying to fight hard to make sure that you and your goons were not anywhere near the White House. And as I've said, I despise Cheney and Trump. And I tried to fight really hard to make sure that Trump was never near the White House either. I've been shouting that from the top of my lungs since 2015. Technically, even a little bit before that, but different story. 2020, we succeeded in that, and I'm glad we did. But here's what I want to tell Democrats: we can't sit here and pretend that, look, if Trump says that somebody else is bad, what do? We don't give him credit for it. We don't, rightfully so. So Trump says that Bush, Rumsfeld, Cheney, I'm sorry, not Cheney, Rumsfeld. I meant Bush, McCain, Romney, a few other Republicans that did not endorse him. They're automatically enemies to him. So he says, oh, they're crooked and they're liars or they're traitors. Well, guess what we do? We sit back and we laugh at him and say, hey, you're just as bad, if not worse. We should be having that same energy and that same logic and that same analysis when Dick Cheney, of all people, has the audacity to call somebody else bad, especially after all of the crooked, corrupt, vile things that he has said and done during the administrations that he worked for, most notably George Bush Jr., where he was vice president, technically kind of president because Bush was stupid and didn't know anything. So Cheney ran the entire show. And as I said, he lied us into 7 different countries. He tanked our economy. He did torture stuff. When he was asked about the torture program and they said, well, isn't this, here's the thing. This part might get a little nastier, but I'm going to try my best here. I'm going to try my best. There was a machine. There were machines that the Bush administration were using to torture people who were terrorists or suspected terrorists. And basically they would be held onto the machine. And there would be like this phallic-shaped object that would insert into a person from the other end. And the lady that questioned him on, I think it was either CBS or NBC News, asked him and said, well, isn't that considered, a form of rape? And he said, out of his own mouth, he said, no. We're not going to use the term rape. Well, we're going to say it's rectal feeding. Oh, mercy. God damn it. People have often asked me, which administration do I think is worse between the Bush and Trump administration? In some ways, the Trump administration is still worse. In other ways, the Bush administration is still worse. I think that the problem with the Bush administration is that they told a lot of the same type of lies, but the Bush people were smarter and they were better at covering up the lies and they were better at using language to cover up what they were actually doing. So when Dick Cheney says we don't call it rape, we call it rectal feeding, you have a number of Americans who are stupid enough to just go along with it and say, oh, well, I guess that does sound better. Maybe it's not rape. No, it's actually still rape. And I need the American people to know that Dick Cheney is basically just a smarter version of Trump. He's just as racist. He's just as crooked. He's just as corrupt. He's just as bigoted. He's just as misogynistic. He's just as xenophobic. Anything that's bad. And by the way, he stated that Trump tried to steal the election. He's basically making it sound, he's implying that he never voted for Trump. In reality, he actually voted for Trump in 2016 and something that came out and said he voted for him in 2020. Now, I'm not saying that he can't have a change of mind. I mean, yeah, he can sit there and decide Trump is bad because he's like, oh, well, if you're going to be a Republican and you're going to win an election, you're going to win it fair and square, even though he didn't win it fair and square. But he voted for him in 2016. Now, I don't think he voted him in the primary. I actually just saw something where he was asked, this was back in March of 2016, where you still had every candidate in 2016 race before it was over. And she asked him, what do you think of Donald Trump? Would you consider voting for him? And he said, I will vote for whoever the nominee is, and I'll do that for my party. Well, guess what? Lo and behold, I think it was June or July of 2016 where Trump officially got the nomination for the Republican Party. So it was set. So now it was going to be him versus Bernie or Hillary, and on the Democrat side, of course, it was Hillary. So now it was Hillary versus Trump. So now Trump is the nominee for the Republicans, and Dick Cheney said, "Okay, I'm behind that guy." Now he has flipped. I need people to understand. Cheney is narcissistic. He's egotistical. He's another person that has no. And by the way, he's convicted on paper by the German government. Why? Because of his numerous, egregious, vile, disgusting, unacceptable, indefensible war crimes. He's convicted. Rumsfeld was convicted. Of course, he passed away last year, and I'm pretty sure he was glad that he never saw a prison cell a day in his life. George Bush is convicted. I'm pretty sure John Ashcroft and Karl Rove are also convicted, but I could be wrong on that. You might have to double check that. Anybody correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong. Thank you for joining. I see a couple people here joining. Candace, thank you very much. So I need people to understand this. I keep repeating myself, but to me it's so disgusting that more and more people are giving this man credit because he says that another guy who is just as bad as him, if not worse, is also bad. I mean, they talk about, of course we saw that Trump was guilty of evading taxes. Well, Cheney did the same thing. He's also a financial fraud. He's a war criminal. He's a warmonger. And by the way, here's another thing too. People say that they can't think of hardly anything good that Trump has done throughout his presidency, which I tend to agree with pretty much. But I also don't think that Dick Cheney did anything good between the years of 2000 and 2008. If he's done anything good, either one has done anything good, please let me know. I have not seen that. One of the first few things that the Cheney/Bush administration did when they got to that White House in 2000 was they lied us into Afghanistan. They were planning to go into Afghanistan even before the Twin Towers fell. Something is going on here. Something was going on there. Now, of course, we may never know the answer to that. But you know what, Cheney? He doesn't care. I'm sure he's satisfied. He gets to live his entire life and not, go to prison. I think that. And by the way, the German government said, like I said earlier, the German government said, Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, Ashcroft, Rove, if you set foot in this country, your asses will be thrown into a prison cell. I wish somebody would just trick them into going to Germany just so they can just walk right into a jail cell. That would be so hilarious. That would, but I don't think that's going to happen. But people, I think the point of this video was to basically highlight the fact that Dick Cheney and Donald Trump have way, way more similarities than they do differences. I've gone over the similarities 3 times, but I'll do it again. Racist, misogynistic, bigoted, criminal, xenophobic, arrogant, narcissistic, egotistical, maniacal, cruel, evil, rude. Dick Cheney, look at his first name. That kind of speaks for itself. Now, some of you are probably thinking, oh, well, but what about some of the differences? Are there differences between Cheney and Trump? Well, maybe. You tell me. I think the difference is that Cheney knows when to shut his mouth. And obviously, that's something that Trump has never been good at. Trump doesn't know when to shut up. Cheney at least knows when to shut up. Cheney, wasn't really fighting with people on Twitter. Of course, I don't even believe Twitter wasn't even really a thing like that during the Bush years anyway. But all I can tell you is that I hate Cheney and Trump. Neither one of them should have been in the White House. They both should be in a prison cell. I think they both should be locked up for life and have the key thrown away. And my message to Democrats is stop giving credit to Dick Cheney and Donald Trump. Neither one, and I mean neither one, deserves it.